A couple fishermen and their kids were out on the Chesapeake Bay one day when they looked over and saw a suitcase floating in the water near their boat. The kids were really excited as they thought there could be buried treasure inside. So the men pulled the suitcase onto their boat, opened it up, and inside was the last thing you would ever expect to find: a gruesome discovery. Inside the suitcase was not buried treasure, but a pair of human legs. And from there, suitcases filled with body parts began washing up all over the area. Who was the victim, this mystery man? And what kind of person could commit such a horrific crime? I'm Avery Ross, and this is Avery After Dark. May 5th, 2004, a beautiful spring day in Virginia Beach. Early that morning, a couple fishermen and their children took their boat out on the Chesapeake Bay to go fishing. They weren't out too long when they made a strange discovery. They noticed a dark green Kenneth Cole suitcase floating on the water near their boat. They reach over, pull the suitcase on board, and notice it's a bit heavy. Now, the adults believe that someone accidentally dropped their luggage off a nearby boat and assume it's just going to be clothing inside. But one of the kids is so excited to open it up because he thinks there's buried treasure inside of it. So they unzip the suitcase, and inside is a black trash bag. The two men immediately get a weird feeling as they look at each other in suspicion. One of the kids quickly opens up the trash bag and sees that inside is a pair of human legs. This was no buried treasure. They had just uncovered part of a corpse. The group winced in horror and immediately called the authorities, giving them possession of the suitcase. Now, this was pretty shocking. Police discovered these appeared to be men's legs, and also they described them as fresh. News quickly spread all over town, and everyone wondered who was the man in the suitcase, and when would the rest of him wash up. After the discovery of the first suitcase, it was just a matter of time. 6 days later, a young woman was walking along Fisherman's Island when she found the second suitcase. She attempted to open it up, but the odor of the decomposition was so putrid, she immediately called authorities. Police had been expecting this call. The second suitcase was brought to the medical examiner, and inside they found the torso and head of this mystery man. The head was wrapped in a medical blanket, and the medical examiner finds this man had been shot numerous times, in both the head and chest. Then, a few days later on May 16th, a fisherman found the third suitcase in the water. This one contained the man's pelvis area. Investigators immediately begin looking into missing persons cases in the area so they can identify this John Doe. They work with an artist to release a sketch of this man, hoping someone will recognize him. And shortly after this, a couple named Bill and Sue Rice were reading the morning paper and came upon the sketch. They knew who this man was. They call up the authorities and tell them, "We think this body you're trying to identify could be our friend named Bill McGuire." Bill and Sue said they were good friends of Bill and told them that Bill lives in Woodbridge, New Jersey, he has 2 young kids, and is married to a woman named Melanie McGuire. And they told police he had been missing for weeks. After a fight with his wife Melanie, she said he left their condo, and no one has seen him since. Police are able to pull fingerprints from a reckless driving charge in the 80s, and the man in the suitcase was positively identified as 39-year-old William Bill McGuire. Police alert Melanie McGuire that her husband is dead, and are a little bit surprised that Melanie had never reported him missing. Police also note that when they tell her that her husband is dead, she didn't ask how he was killed. Police find that petite Melanie worked as a fertility nurse. Friends and family said she was caring, compassionate. Her patients really liked her, saying she was gentle and kind. Bill was described as a funny guy and worked as a computer programmer. Now, what about Bill and Melanie's relationship? Friends said in the beginning it was love, but they were the kind of couple that seemed to enjoy the drama. They liked the ups and downs. They were madly in love one minute, they would break up the next, then get back together. Melanie and Bill got married in 1999 in a very extravagant wedding and settled in Woodbridge, New Jersey. Now, when talking with investigators, Melanie tells them that Bill gambled quite a bit. In fact, she described him as a compulsive gambler. She also claimed that Bill was very moody, and oftentimes he would leave for Atlantic City and she wouldn't see or hear from him for a while. And that's where she assumed he went after their fight. She also told investigators that Bill was the kind of person that could really tick someone off, alluding to the idea that in Atlantic City, Bill had gotten involved with the wrong type of crowd in the gambling scene. She even told them that arguments over his gambling got to be so intense. On one occasion, when Melanie told him to stop, Bill told her that when I get back home, I'm going to kill you. The day that Bill disappeared, police find out that the couple had just closed on a $500,000 house on April 28th. But later that night, Melanie says the two got into an explosive, heated argument about the new house. She said that things got physical. She claimed that Bill shoved a dryer sheet into her mouth. And then she said that Bill left, telling her that he was never coming back. She said she believed he was going to Atlantic City like he always did. And as far as she was concerned, their marriage was over. Police questioned why she never contacted them to alert that he was missing. Yeah, Bill would sometimes go off the grid for a couple days and go gambling, but he had been missing for a month. Melanie said that she didn't even try to call him after he left because it was over. She even had proof she reached out to a divorce attorney and asked the court for a restraining order against Bill. She claimed she was so afraid of him. So Melanie is painting this picture of her being a victim of Bill's, who had this bad gambling addiction, and also the tendency to be violent with her. Aside from the body, the only other evidence they had to go on were the suitcases. Who did they belong to? And investigators have to ask if the couple owned any luggage sets. And Melanie quickly said, well, none that are matching, but then later changed her tune and said, well, actually, yeah, we do. A green Kenneth Cole luggage set. Authorities find the luggage set that Bill's dismembered body was found in belonged to the couple. So this was a big clue. Next, police want to take a look at the couple's apartment to see if they could find anything else. But strangely, they find that Melanie had already cleared out the couple's condo. The place was completely empty. And they also find that she had already gotten rid of all of her husband's belongings, giving them to a family friend. So police track down these bags filled with Bill's clothing and find the plastic black bags she used to pack up Bill's things were identical to the black bags found in the suitcases, the ones that were used to wrap Bill's body. Investigators also know that Bill's head was found wrapped in a medical-style blanket and make the connection that Melanie is a nurse. Melanie continues to tell investigators that Bill probably got himself involved with the wrong people in the gambling world. Maybe he owed someone money, got in too deep, and someone killed him over it. She also urges them to start looking for his car and points them directly to Atlantic City. And police do end up finding Bill's car exactly where she said they would. Now, in the meantime, Bill's body is released back to Melanie, and she instantly had him cremated and hosted a funeral for her husband that lasted all of 15 minutes. Police's number one suspect here is petite, mild-mannered Melanie McGuire. Melanie was really one of the last people you would ever expect to be behind this gruesome of a murder, but all signs were pointing straight to her. Police secretly tapped her phones and they make a bombshell discovery. They find that Melanie was in a secret relationship with a married coworker. Around the time Melanie and Bill's second child was born, Melanie began an affair with Dr. Bradley Miller. She was working as one of his nurses, and from the tapes, investigators find the two had been in a secret relationship for quite a while. Police never found any evidence that Dr. Brad was involved in this murder in any way. Police recorded hundreds of hours of tapes of Melanie's conversations with Dr. Brad as well as her parents and friends, and noticed that there was one phrase she really liked to use on phone calls. The phrase, cut off at the knees. But even so, it was hard for many to square a woman like Melanie McGuire with this violent of a crime. This case really forced investigators to think outside the box and realize that killers could look like Melanie McGuire. They could be a petite, seemingly innocent nurse. One of the smoking guns in this case was in fact a gun. Police found records of Melanie purchasing a .38 caliber handgun 2 days before she said her husband disappeared. Along with the gun, she had purchased wad cutter bullets, and the medical examiner found that Bill McGuire was shot with a .38 caliber handgun with wad cutter bullets. Confronted with this, Melanie tells them Bill actually asked her to buy that gun for her because he had a record and couldn't purchase firearms. He had a prior arrest years back. So she claimed that, yeah, the timing was a bit coincidental. But he could have asked her to buy this gun because he knew he was going to be dealing with some upcoming gambling issues. But that's not all. Police discovered that around the time that Bill went missing, Melanie took a couple road trips. They discovered that Melanie had used an Easy Pass at a toll booth to Atlantic City 2 days after Bill was murdered. Upon further investigation, police found security footage of Bill's car being moved in the early morning hours of April 30th. Unfortunately, the footage was blurry and police weren't able to identify the person in this video, but Melanie later claimed that she actually moved it as a part of a prank on her husband. She said she drove all the way to Atlantic City to move his car a few blocks away, so it would be a real pain for him to find it. Oh, because that makes a lot of sense. She claimed that this was something that they would do to get back at each other. And police are like, isn't this the same man you said you had to get a restraining order against because you were so afraid of him? But at the same time, you claim you wanted to pull a prank on him? Yeah, okay. It made no sense. Investigators also discover another road trip, this time to Delaware, just days after Bill went missing. Melanie claimed that she was furniture shopping, but the route she took would have led her straight to the Chesapeake Bay area, where investigators believe she dumped off the suitcases in the bay, as that first suitcase, containing Bill's legs, was found that very next day. When questioned, Melanie said that all of these things were just coincidences, but police don't believe it. And despite not having a lot of physical evidence, mostly what they had was circumstantial, they felt like they had enough. And on June 2nd, 2005, more than a year after the murder, Melanie dropped her kids off at daycare, and after walking out, law enforcement emerged from the bushes and arrested her. She was charged with her husband's murder. And then the media circus began. The gruesomeness of the crime, the suspect, this petite young nurse, it was all stranger than fiction. During Melanie's trial, prosecutors theorized that while Bill was preparing for a move into their new home, a new chapter in the couple's life, Melanie was plotting his murder to make room for her lover, her richer boyfriend, Dr. Brad. Prosecutors also come forward with evidence they found in Bill's car, a bottle of a sedative used in medical practices, and a syringe. They called it a knockout drug, and investigators found a script for it had been called into the Walgreens pharmacy near where Melanie lived at the time of Bill's death. And the prescribing doctor's name on the prescription pad was Dr. Brad Miller. And when confronted with this, Dr. Miller said that was not his signature on the prescription, and that it was likely forged by Melanie McGuire. Prosecutors stated that Melanie would have had access to this kind of drug through her work, and they believed that she used this on Bill to render him completely helpless, theorizing that she drugged and then shot him. They also looked on Melanie and Bill's home computer and found some startling searches were made prior to Bill's death, including how to purchase guns illegally, undetectable poisons, and how to commit murder. Melanie argued that someone made those searches, but it wasn't her. With all of this, on April 23, 2007, Melanie McGuire was found guilty of killing her husband Bill McGuire, dismembering his body, packing the pieces into 3 suitcases, and tossing them into the Chesapeake Bay. She was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 66 years, plus 5 years for desecration of Bill's remains. This case was dubbed the suitcase murder, for obvious reasons. And through reports, it's said that Melanie hasn't been in contact with her children, who are now adults, since her trial. But some, including Melanie's family, believe she was wrongfully convicted. Just like Melanie, they wholeheartedly believe all the coincidences surrounding her behavior and movements before and after Bill's death is just her being the most unlucky woman alive. But I gotta know, what are your thoughts on the suitcase murder? And what's your take on Melanie McGuire? Do you think the court got it right? Drop your theories in the comments here on YouTube. I always love hearing your take. Thanks so much for subscribing to this channel. Hit that like button. Next episode, I've got so much more mystery coming your way. To hold you over until next time, check out these videos. You can pick that one or that one. I know you'll really enjoy.